Hello, hello. Hope you are well. Happy Friday. And wherever you are, I hope you're warm. It's very, very cold here in Toronto. And I'm glad that I'm inside. I'm thankful that I have an inside and all that kind of stuff. Hope you are safe and warm and good. I see a few of you in the comments already. My homie Nick Hill, bandless represent. Yeah. So would not be a Bunn live stream without unbelievable problems before the stream. I got most things working. I don't know why it doesn't just stay from stream to stream. I feel like I'm not making progress technically in the way that I would like, but enough things are working today to do the show that we need to make. The show, not make, do. Do the show that we need to do. Development of a Void. Hello. Tyler Adams. Hello. Computer Conquered Bros. Yeah. How's your PC going, Tyler? I hope things are working out. Development of a Void is enjoying this weather, this horrific weather. Yeah, Nick Hill says we need to switch to hardware, meaning rather than software streaming stuff to hardware streaming stuff. And that's exactly what I want to do. I'd like to move over to the Blackmagic ATEM Mini Pro and do it that way because yeah, the software stuff is a little bit of a fuss. Hello there, Igor. Hope you are well. Yeah, I'm stoked that you're finally here as well. Get to interact with the dudes, introduce yourself, get involved with the conversations. That's something that's always cool in Bunn streams is make friends, have conversations in the comments. You just do the @. It's like, let's do an example here, @Igor. And it'll just pop up. Bam, Igor K. And you just type a message to your homies. Bam, bam. I think I hope that illustrates the technique, the tactic. Aaron, Cyberdong Wang. I like it's a very funny username. Igorb, also Igor. Oh, okay. Got all the okay, different Igor though, I think. I don't know. Maybe it's the same Igor. Maybe it's duplicate Igors, or maybe it's brothers from different mothers. Where am I from? Oh, the Igor and Igor. There we go. Awesome. You guys are already talking. It's my legal name. Is it really? Cyberdong Wang? No, it can't be. If it is, it's pretty cool. Renato, how are you? Aloha. Igorb is from Croatia. And I think the other Igor is from Russia. No? I could be wrong. Fidel, how are you? I hope all is well. Not an Igor. But yes, hope everyone is well. We're going to kind of get into it. And as always, the format of the show is we kind of get into a topic in between the sort of points of the topic. We get a little bit into the comments and have a little bit of a conversation. And then once we're done the topic, we just have a little jamboree, shoot the breeze, hang out in the comments, talk, ask questions, share what we're doing, all that kind of stuff. So Igor K is from Poland. Igor, my last name is Soklovsky, my actual last name. I'm of Polish descent, but I was born here in Canada. But my family's from Poland. And from what I understand, it's actually more of a Russian name. But yeah. And my Polish family spoke Ukrainian because one of my grandmothers could only speak Ukrainian or something like that. Anyhow, Benjamin, hope you're well. From Maine. I bet Maine is a little bit warmer than Toronto. But yeah, I hope everyone is warm and well. We're going to get into the topic today. This here show is Bunn on Demand. It's not a very creative name. Perhaps we will come up with a better name in the near future once I get all this technical stuff with streaming really sorted. You know, I'd like to have some pre-roll and some bumpers and some cards and some production and make it a little bit more of a organized as well as fun kind of show. But today's topic is kind of controlling the tones, getting the tones and controlling the tones for the baritones. We're going to actually play some guitar. I'm not going to play anything too crazy. It's all going to be for example of the tones. We're going to be using the Helix. But the ideas that we're going to be looking at in the Helix, you can apply some of it to regular amps and any plugins that you might be using. Unfortunately, I can't get audio to stream out of the DAW. In the past, I could get audio out of the DAW, no problem, and not other places. Now it's the opposite. So I don't know, but we can hear the Helix and, oh, what's going on? Open widget. Looks like, is my stream dead? Oh no, it's going. Good. Alex, hello, how are you? Hope all is well. But yeah, today's topic, we're going to be looking at ways to kind of control the baritone tone. A lot of people, they plug in their baritone for the first time with the super low tuning, especially if you're going down to G and lower. There are a lot of challenges in terms of extended bottom end and mud. And a lot of people are like, this is not what I was expecting. This is garbage. I can't do anything with it. Or, you know, something like that. There's some frustration there when you're new to it. And sometimes it's something that plagues people for a long time. So we talk a lot about things like low pass filters and boosts and all that. So we're going to look at examples of that today. Like I say, using the Helix, but the ideas that we're looking at in the Helix can be used with a regular amp. Most of what we're going to be looking at can be used with a regular amp and a mic especially, and as well as in a DAW with plugins and all that kind of stuff. The idea is to look at the ideas expressed and try and move those ideas over into different mediums and different situations, because the idea is what, you know, makes it all happen. If you understand the ideas behind things, you can use them in other things. So we're going to take a look at that stuff. Whatchamacallit, if you enjoy the channel and you'd like to help things along, there are obviously the super stickers, and people have been very generous with those. I don't expect anything, but if you'd like to help out, you can do it that way. But also, if you're not excited about that way, in the description of the video, there's a bunch of links to different ways that you can get involved and help things along. Huge shout out to everybody with me at Patreon and YouTube memberships. Those people are so huge in terms of like why I can do anything with my music life, with my creative life. So, and obviously share what I have discovered, what I know, what I might be stuck on, and, you know, try and help the whole thing along, help the whole movement of this low tuning thing and production and all that along. So yeah, if you'd like to get involved, you can do it all those ways. if not, and you just want to hang out, that is super cool too. Because hanging out that's probably like 90% of it right there. You know, communicating with people like yourself, people who have similar interests and are excited about the same kinds of things. That's huge. It's huge for me anyway. So yeah, we're going to get into the topic here today. The very first thing that we're going to talk about in terms of controlling your baritone. You got your baritone, you want to record something, or you want to play live or whatever. You're trying to get some tones and, you know, it might not be working out. If the guitar is brand new and freshly set up, the first thing we're going to talk about doesn't necessarily apply. But the very first thing to think about in terms of if you're not getting the tones that you like, are the strings new-ish. You know, new strings make a big difference unless you like the dead string sound. I know people who are going for that kind of a sound. And if you already know that that's what you're going for, that kind of like really mucky, super saucy, like it's not even saucy, it's like soupy, gross kind of thing, very dead sound. You can do it with either dead strings or you could do it with flat wounds, you know, or half rounds. Different kinds of strings or different kinds of string situations are going to, you know, have a major effect on everything that comes after. So start with the strings. And the guitar that we're going to be using today is this here Gretsch Electromatic Jet Baritone. It is a 29.75 inch scale guitar. It's currently tuned to G standard. It has 14 to 68 strings on it. The strings are not super new, and hopefully you can hear it here in this mic just to kind of get a sense. Has a little bit of ring to it. They're on the verge of being dead. You know, and if I play a chord here, not a lot of shimmer. Brad Sexton, how are you, my dude? Oh, good to see you in the stream, brother. Alex, good to see you in the stream. But yeah, we're going to be using this guitar today. The strings on this guitar are on the verge of being completely unacceptable. I wouldn't record anything, do any final recordings with the guitar in this state right now. But I'm going to use this guitar because I think it's kind of a good example. But yeah, no shimmer in the strings. However, not completely dead yet, sort of right on the edge. But, you know, if you want a bright and lively tone that cuts in a mix, especially for a recording, highly suggest having new strings. The second thing with the strings is sometimes you'll have brand new strings and the strings are really big. Let's say you have a shorter scale baritone and you're trying to get a much lower tuning out of the scale length than the scale length is optimized for. And the strings are really big. The strings will be really dead sounding and it will be difficult to get a really crushing kind of tone, a really, you know, if you're going for that kind of modern metal kind of thing. I'm going to put this guitar on. So first thing is strings. You know, we talk about strings a lot. Oh, give me a second here. As many of you know, I am a nipple rider. And yeah, takes a lot to put a guitar on. The nipple rider. Here we go. Oh yeah, all set. So that's pretty good. Great. So strings. We talk a lot about strings in the Baritone Obsessed Facebook group. If you're not a member of the group, baritoneobsessed.com gets you there. Got to answer a few questions, you can get in. But yeah, it's a great group for baritone stuff. But we talk a lot about strings there. the string thing is old. It's an old topic, but it's kind of important. So yeah, number one is strings. Newer strings are going to be easier to work with than dead strings, and strings at a weight that is kind of not appropriate, but optimized for the scale length and the tuning. So if you can get a balance of light enough strings at enough scale length for the tuning that you're at, you're going to get it's going to be easier to get a bright sound, a sound that is lively, a guitar-like sound. So that's number one. And in that same category, we got pickups, a lot of times. So what do I have for an example? Nothing I can grab quickly. But right now I'm working on a video for the Mic Shock. It's a little bit of a sleeper baritone. And I have two of them here, one of them with stock pickups, one of them with very, very hot passive pickups. And I'm going to be switching one of them to some better pickups. And it's been interesting to go back to the Mashak, the stock Mashak with the stock pickups, because those pickups are not good. And, if you get that guitar and you just start playing it stock, and you're like, why can't I get that tone that I hear? A huge part of it is the pickups, especially if you're already tuning the guitar lower than it optimally functions at with big, big strings. So you're going to have deadness there. And then the pickups, the stock pickups in the Mic Shock are very, I don't know, not dead, just kind of life. I don't want to talk smack, but they're not great. It's very difficult to get to where you want to go with it. The Gretsch has these mini humbuckers here. They're based on a TV Jones style of pickup. They are not TV Jones. They're designed by TV Jones for Gretsch, but they are not TV Jones. But they're strangely a bright pickup, even in this cheap guitar. And this is sort of a knockoff TV Jones design made in China. They're surprisingly bright, but they have a lot of body to them. So we can plug it in and hear it. As I'm plugging in here, I want to shout out to my homie, the Cosman. He made me these cables. They're coily cables for the desk. They're ideal for the desk, and they're short. So they're short. I can have them always plugged in, and they're coily, so they're not all over the ground. So there's enough leeway in them to kind of work at the desk and not pull things over. But shout out to Cosman. Actually, if you're interested in what the Cosman is doing, he can make you cables. He can make you amps. He's got a YouTube channel with some amazing tech stuff. I'm going to put it in the comments here. And the Cosman and his cables. Very cool. Thank you, Cosman. But I don't know. So let me know if the guitar is coming through. Gear Stuff and Things, how are you? Danny, how are you? Who else? Loki, how are you? Ann, how are you? Or Ian? That tone. That tone is, we're gonna get into that tone. DM Black Vard. Is that Jack? But anyway, so the second part of our little thing here, the comments, I'm not gonna be able to see them here for a bit. Let me see. What do I have to do? Bam, bam, desktop right. Bam, there we go. Great. And where's my notes? Bam. Okay, great. So the very first thing we're looking at this here, Helix thing. and this may be foreign to some of you, but just to give an example of what's going on right now, we have an amp right now and a cabinet. The cabinet is a dual cabinet block. There are two cabinets in this block. There is a Mesa Boogie Cali, Mesa Boogie Recto cab with V30s, and there is a, I believe this is an Angle double XL with V30s. This Angle cab has a 421, a Sennheiser MD421 model mic on it, and the Mesa Boogie has a 57 dynamic, a Shure SM57 mic model on it. So that's what's going on. All you can hear right now is just, this is just the amp and the cabs. I thought I tuned it. Let's see. Let's just do a quick, bear with me here. No, it's out. Great. Great. Okay. That sounds mostly in tune. So, what's going on with the amp, and how does this relate to low tuning stuff? So the very first thing, I'm using the Rev Red model. A lot of people would go for the purple first. I personally don't like the purple so much because it's got a kind of genty kind of thing. I'm not going for a genty thing. If you're going for a genty thing, the purple might be a better amp to start with. But the Rev Red is a little bit fatter and I don't know, not as tight. Tight is good for low tuning, but you know, I'm going for something a little bit different. But nonetheless, this is a great model. And the very first thing on this model or this amp to take note of is the gain level. The gain level is set to 3. And whoa. So the gain on the amp itself being very low is sort of the number one thing in terms of super low tuning if you're looking to kind of work with the muddiness of it. Having low amp gain is very helpful. So that's where we're starting. We're starting at 3. I can give you an example of, like, you know, the gain dimed. It's very loose. Incredibly loose. So we don't want it that loose. We want it pretty tight. But it's not very tight. The second thing is the bass control. You know, keeping the bass control usually lower than 5. Sometimes you can go even lower than that on certain models. Depends. As we get through this sort of all of this thinking, we'll sort of see how these things relate a little bit more. But the bass control for super low tuning, usually pretty low. Almost never over 5 on any amp, a real amp, a model, anything like that, usually below 5. And then, you know, going to the mid control is usually quite high. Unless you're going for a scoop mid sound, but scoop mids tend to not be very helpful. We can listen to what, so scoop mid gets really cloudy really fast, right? So what did we have it at? I think we had it at 6.5. Bam. And conversely, on a lot of amps, if you go too high on the mids, let's go dime it, starts sounding like broken crackers. You know, I'm making some soup. I want to break some crackers to put in that soup. So, you know, I'm going to set it at around 6.5. There's a healthy amount of mids. But yeah. And my friend Stephen Barton over at Gear Stuff and Things, he often, when he's talking about guitar tones and setting things up, he will often set his mids first. He'll set his drive and then his mids and then set everything else around that. And that's a great way to sort of, if you're just going cold into an amp, set the gain, the mids, gain as low as you can get away with, then the mids, and then the bass and the treble, you know, starting with everything at 5 and kind of plus or minus accordingly. In, I believe, the last episode of Bunn on Demand, we were talking about guitar amp controls at some point, and something to note is that most guitar tube amp controls on a real tube amp are passive controls, and the, let's say the mid control at 100% is the circuit kind of flat. Manufacturers try to voice each part of the EQ control to their personal liking of what flat is at 5. It's a little bit of a confusing topic to talk about without like actually having a whatchamacallit, a real life example in showing things. But yeah, there is no real cut in the EQ control on guitar amps unless they are a different kind of design. Like unless they are a parametric design or a graphic design, an active EQ circuit. Most of them are a passive EQ circuit, and everything below 10 is cutting or dampening down a certain frequency range in a certain curve. So kind of good to know when you're dialing in amps how the EQ works, because you may be able to work with it in a better way. But yeah, moving along, we have like the treble control is very high. The presence is very high. You know, the treble is at 9 and the presence is at 8. And I think this is very common for most of us, no matter what amp we're using or what setting, for that high gain kind of sound. You can hear a little bit of that sizzle and the bite and the attack. And that's got a lot to do with the treble and the presence. The treble actually is only voiced in the high mids. You know, it's around somewhere between 2 and 6K in terms of guitar amp. We're going to be able to look at that in a bit. Once we get to high and low pass filters, we'll take a look at what that looks like. But yeah, the rest of the controls here are kind of to taste and specific to each amplifier. If you're using the Helix, it gives you these things in the power amp section: the resonance, aggression, sag, hum, ripple, bias, and bias X. Some of these are specific to this amp. The sag, hum, ripple, bias, and bias X are generally a setting that is available in all Helix amps. The ones to really be concerned with would be bias and sag. Sag is kind of, you know, the slowness of the, not the slowness, it introduces like a soupiness. It does exactly what it sounds like, the sag. More sag sounds saggy. But a certain amount of sag is going to give dimension and body and fullness. So you want a little bit of sag for this low tuning stuff, but it's a kind of a set to taste thing. The hum and the ripple are more if you're looking for, you know, a vintage sound. They're kind of defective sounds in old tube amp designs. I don't want the hum or the ripple. I'm not going to get into the specifics of them because it's technical. The bias is how hot the power amp tubes run. If power amp tubes are running too hot and they're saturated, they are soft and sort of slow responding. Great for leads, because they bloom, but not great for rhythm and not that great for super low tuning for if you want articulation. So I tend to go halfway up with the bias, which is kind of a cold bias setting. And bias X is sort of, it's got to do with the plate in the tubes. Once again, we could get into some really technical stuff there, but I find on a lot of amps, the bias X in Helix is not something that is very favorable. However, in this amp, a little bit of the bias X seems to add dimension, just in case you're wondering what's going on with the rest of these settings. But most important things: drive, bass, mid, treble, presence, channel volume. In this case, it's just the channel, like the volume of the channel that is being sent to the power amp, the volume of that. But the big ones are the drive and the bass. Drive very low, or the gain on the amp very low, and the bass quite low, usually below 5. So that's what's going on with the amp settings in this tone. We haven't even gotten to an overdrive or whatever, but the very first thing, if you're getting into these low tunings and you're trying to set up amps, any amps, these are things to think about. And then going to the cab here, there's two things going on with the cab. I maybe didn't pick the best tone here because this is two cabs. We're just going to focus on one cab right now. There's reasons why you might want to mix cabs. It's not important to today's topic. What is important is kind of like what's going on with the speakers. So number one is, if you can afford to get a speaker cabinet that is sort of more suited, better suited to what you're doing, what you want to do, then that's better. If you're using models, the world is your oyster. You know, in the Helix, there's tons of cabs. In IRs, there's tons of IRs that you can use. But what's going on with cabs in terms of super low tuning is you typically want for this heavy metal kind of stuff with low tuning, typically want a cab that has like a big sound, but not too boomy. And there's a couple things with the boominess, like ways that you can control the boominess in terms of the mic placement, the mic choice and the mic placement. So if you're recording the mic, or if you're playing live and there's a mic on the amp, mic on the cabinet, a 57 right now, the model on this is the SM57, the Shure SM57. And it is 1 inch away from the cone. So that's about this far away off of the cone. And that is a very common sort of setup. You get quite a bit of attack, quite a bit of aggression, being close to the cone, but not right on top of the cone. So it's still a little bit smoother, but it is a tight, very direct sound. So this mic has a very tight sound to it, the SM57, and the distance that the mic is and the placement of the mic has an effect as well as to what is going on. And they're both important. And if you're playing live, and you're using real amps, this is kind of an important thing to know. And playing with it in models these days is very similar to what you would actually do in real life. There's a lot to learn about real amps these days because the modeling is so good that you can use models to learn about real amps. The final thing that's going on here, and we're going to move on after this. We're going to get to some comments and then move on to the next topic. But the final thing that's going on is Line 6 gives you a little bit of EQ control on the cab models. And the important ones is the low cut and the high cut. And you'll notice here for me, this is what I do. A lot of people are going to think I'm crazy, but I've been doing it this way for a very long time. I cut the lows very high, 100 hertz, 100 hertz is kind of the space where guitar bottom end is. It might go a little bit lower than that, like, I don't know, into the 90 hertz zone. Typically, you will have a little bit more bottom end in this setting with higher tunings. So if you're tuned to E standard, you can actually afford to have more, like less low cut, more bottom end on the cab. But with the super low tuning, you're going to find that a pretty extreme setting like this, a pretty extreme cut, is going to be hugely beneficial. And then lastly, the high cut. The high cut is the fizz, you know, and let's just turn that off. You can hear it right away. Sounds like a Wolverine in a paper bag. It's not. Oh, 5. Did I just say 50,000? 5,000. 5,000 hertz or 5 kilohertz or 5.5 kilohertz. But anyhow, the high cut kind of, there's a lot of stuff in the super high register of guitar signal that is not very useful. And I don't know, to me, it doesn't do anything positive. Some people like some of the stuff up there. And if you like to sculpt your tone with more EQ, you can do that. I just get it out of there. And I typically will focus on a boost somewhere around 2.364 kilohertz. But yeah, amp and cab, first thing, you know, after the guitar itself, after the strings and the pickups, the amp and the cab. And so I hope some of these ideas, some of this is going to be boring as F to some of you, and I apologize. We're going to get into hopefully more exciting things from here. Just quickly to the high and low cut. I want to show a graphical representation of what's going on there. So this is the Slate Infinity EQ, but this is essentially what's happening. Let's turn it on because you'll be able to see it. And so, wow, the Slate EQ is cutting even more, but that's what the high and low cut looks like. And like I said, this is actually doing even more than I find the line 6 EQs are very, very mellow. Like they don't cut off as steeply, you know, 24 dB per octave type of thing. If you don't know what that is, we'll cover that another day. But that's what a high and low cut looks like, just in case you don't know. So, and that's what's happening in the Helix, just it's not as extreme in the Helix. So, main camera, bam. Here we go. Lots of stuff going on in the chat. We're going to talk in the chat here for a moment. Oh, wow. A lot of you. Who's showed up here? Baritone Cult, how are you? Max, how are you? Synth Chris, how are you? I hope all is well. Carlos, Beard Guy's back. How are you, Beard Guy? Development, Apoplexia, David, how are you? Yay, tones. Turboplasma, how are you, man? Benjamin, how are you? I hope everyone is well. And so Benjamin says, I'm amazed that you're able to simulate ripple. Seems like the one thing you'd want to categorically leave behind when modeling an amp, at least in my experience, is the sound of frustration. I agree, but if you're going for a really vintage, if you want to recreate some really kind of vintage tones and tunes, the ripple is a big part of that. So I applaud Line 6 for being that detailed in terms of if you want to do like a really kind of just a super vintage Beatles sounding kind of thing, or even older, the ripple is a useful thing in that, or can be a useful thing in that. Like the Kinks, the Clash, like all those like gnarly rock and roll tones from the early days. That's where those kinds of features are very useful. But yes, for us now, in terms of this more modern music form, where we want, I don't know, the richness, brightness control, all that kind of stuff, the ripple is not very useful to us, but it is useful to some people. SM57. So David Apoplexia says SM57 varieties of tones, but not really. Varieties. Yeah, so the 57, it's sort of the famous guitar mic because it naturally cuts the lows, and it kind of has a boost in the upper mids that is very favorable. And yeah, there's a reason why people reach for the 57. The 58 is not completely different. The big difference is the sort of the windscreen has an effect on the capsule, like how the capsule picks up. If you take the windscreen off of a 58, it seems to respond more like a 57, which is interesting. But yeah, 57s are great for guitar because they do a little bit of the EQ that a lot of people are reaching for to begin with. So, and then in the model that I was sharing, the second cab has a Sennheiser MD421. The MD421 is a more even responding mic. You know, it has a lower cutoff and a higher cutoff. So there's a little more information in those mics, and it's a little bit more even. So a more faithful reproduction of what you put it in front of, with the exception of proximity effect. For those of you who don't know what proximity effect is the closer you put a mic, we could probably simulate it here. So if I'm talking back here, there's probably a lot less bottom end. And as I get closer to the mic and closer to the mic and closer to the mic and closer to the mic, I can't hear it in my headphones, but it should be a lot more bottom end response. And that's called proximity effect. And you can use proximity effect to your advantage in recording. And some microphones are more sensitive to proximity effect and some are less. So 57s are less responsive to proximity effect. They still respond to it, but a Sennheiser MD421 responds more to proximity effect. To what degree more or less, I'm not sure. I haven't measured it. But yeah, proximity effect is a big thing, and people make mic choices based on that. Miles Does Music, how are you? Mr. Miles, giving me the dollars. Thank you, brother. Stoked you are here. Mr. Miles, for those of you who don't know, Miles Does Music has a YouTube channel. You can click through his icon to check out his channel. He did an amazing video recently on the circle of fifths and did a really great job in terms of kind of breaking it down in a much more palatable way. If you've ever felt on the outside with theory or on the outside of specific concepts like the circle of fifths, Miles might be the guy to talk to in terms of understanding that stuff more, and then also being able to use those things more and create more interesting music, which is exactly what Miles does. So thank you, Miles. I hope you are well in New Jersey. I imagine it's cold as F in New Jersey as well. Hope you are staying warm. What else have we got going on here? ASMR. That's when I was like, new vid about strings. My new video about strings. I don't know. Do I have a new video about strings? I have, like, there's always videos about strings. Whatchamacallit? Mr. Gear Stuff and Things did a little bit of a thing on strings on his Instagram live last Saturday. Everybody's doing things on strings because strings are a things. Jake G, how are you? Hope you are well. Can't stick around to watch the live stream at the moment, but just wanted to say you rock, dude. Thanks for all the great vids. Oh, thanks, Jake G. I'm stoked that you are stoked on them. I hope that things are helpful and maybe fun. You know, I try to be fun a little bit. Moving along here, Benjamin, my experience is that well-worn gear will become dissonant, especially when playing high on the neck. That's the sound of ripple. High frequencies overlap a bit and fight for prominence. Yeah, ripple is something like in terms of the line 6, what they're talking about in the power amp section. It's a similar thing. It is a sort of a harmonic distortion in the power section in, I believe, in the tube plates or in the inverter. Could be in the inverter. Not exactly sure, but when you hear ripple, you're like, oh, there's this amp ripples. Oh, Gear Stuff and Things saw Miles's Circle of Fifths video. Yeah, solid video. Anyhow, we're going to move along in the topic here, folks. Jimbo Collins, hello. Hope you are well. But we're going to move along in the topic so that we can get to the full-blown chat a little bit later on. And moving along to this here. Oh, don't touch that. I'll stop the stream. Bam. Let's go desktop right. Perfect. Out of sight. And let's bring that Helix thing back up. What's the next thing on our topic? It's on the other side of the camera. All right. Okay. Mid boost. So we got our amp tone and it's pretty bland. I got to turn off. So one thing that's going on right now is I can hear the DAW and the Reaper, or like the Infinity EQ and Reaper, but nobody else can because I can't get audio out of Reaper specifically, which is so frustrating. One day I'll win. But what do we got here? Come on, Doc. There we go. Great. So we'll just, we'll make this full size. Why not? Let's do it. Oh, is it in the way? Nah, it's probably good. Distortion. Great. So for the distortion, this is not a distortion. It is the Horizon drive built into the Helix. It's very, very similar to the actual Horizon drive. According to Nick Hill has the Horizon drive and several Helixes, 19 Helixes. But he can't really tell a difference. He's more than happy with the Horizon drive in the Helix. So that's interesting. But we're using the Horizon drive today, no surprise. So when we turn on, let's just like listen to the amp real quick. So let's turn it on, bam, and then. It tightens up a lot, you know. Anyway, my cool riffs, they're not cool at all. But anyway, the drive. What's going on with the drive? So the drive, the settings on the drive is set to 0. This is not my settings. This is a very everybody does this. The magic of the overdrive is the level, and the overdrive itself in the circuit, it has sort of a pre-filter. It is a pre-filter boost, or it's pre-filtered boost, meaning that it filters out some bottom end to begin with, and then you boost up whatever you want. You boost up either the drive or the level. And the magic of tube screamers, this is based around a tube screamer kind of idea, except the Horizon drive has way more boost. So the level is twice as much on a Horizon drive as it is on a tube screamer. We can turn that down and it'll still sound quite good. It's actually almost too tight. Something I noticed about the Horizon Drive is this attack thing. The higher you turn it up, the less attack there is. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it gets more attacky. I don't know. I find modest settings with the attack is... Yeah, not sure. The brightness is pretty much at halfway. And yeah, the level is the thing. A lot of people go all the way up. I actually don't like to go all the way up. Let's go 7.5, 7.7. Great. So let's turn the tube screamer off. So this is a magical thing in terms of, you know, controlling the bottom end of a baritone. The tube screamer, the Horizon Drive, the tube screamer-esque overdrive. There's a lot to choose from, and this one is very popular at the moment. And if you have a modeler, you can go a step further and you can put an EQ at the end. You know, I don't even know what I have going on here. Actually sounds kind of plasticky. I don't know. Ooh, that sounds more like a Wolverine in a paper bag again. So maybe that plastic thing is good. I don't know. So yeah, with modelers, you have the opportunity to put EQs after the cab, which can be very beneficial. If you're using a real amp, you can't really do this. The sound guy can do this, but if it's the house sound guy, I wouldn't trust them. But if you have your own sound person, I shouldn't say sound guy, sound person, you know, they might be able to do something like this. What's going on with the low frequency, low Q, low gain, minus? Okay, so I got some stuff going on. I'm pulling out a little bit of bottom in the, you know, 495 hertz, just like 1.5 dB. Low gain, mid frequency. I got a mid frequency boost, and it is plus 5 dB. That's like kind of a little too high there. And 8 kilohertz. What is this? High frequency. Nothing's happening in the high frequency, and the high cut is 7 kilohertz on the post EQ. I don't know why I chose 7, but so there you have it. You can use a post EQ as well, but you know, if you are using a regular amp, you pretty much have this. You have a overdrive, an amp, and a cab. And setting the amp, going back to that, set the gain pretty low, the bass control pretty low, the mid to your liking. Be generous with the mids usually. Treble and presence are usually always pretty high. And then with the overdrive, really drive the overdrive so that it's pushing into the amp really hard. Because the preamp tubes, if you add gain within the amp to the preamp tubes, for some reason they soften up. But if you push more gain into the tubes from the input, for some reason they stay tighter. I'm not too sure. I think Cosman might still be in the chat. Cosman knows a lot about electronics. He may be able to illuminate us exactly as to the electrical phenomenon that is happening, why this occurs. But yeah, when you push more level into a tube amp, into the preamp of a tube amp. The preamp tubes will have that high gain sound, but they will stay tight or tighter. It depends what overdrive you use, of course. So if you use an overdrive that is naturally tight in the bottom end, like a tube screamer, or in this case, a horizon drive, it will tighten up more because the overdrive is voiced that way. But yeah, so basic amp setup. This is what you got. You know, a tubes or an overdrive, the head, the cab, and the cab has a mic on it. And those three choices, if you make certain kinds of choices, are going to be more in line or a little bit better for super low stuff than if you make other choices. So getting to know what things sound like, and like I was saying before with modelers are so good now that they give you a really, really good idea of what the real thing actually sounds like and what the real scenario actually sounds like. Things are so close. Are they exact? A lot of times, no, but they are close enough that you can learn a lot from using them. And parlay that, you know what time it is, by the way. It is time for liquid death because I need to murder my thirst. Oh, that's the stuff right there. My thirst is murdered. But yeah. What were we talking about? I don't know. I can't remember. Amps. Low tuning. Yeah, it's got a little bit of that Wolverine in a paper bag kind of thing without the post EQ. Yeah. Sounds good enough to me. I could do a record. I was originally going to do some examples with the DAW, but like I say, I can't get the audio out of the DAW and into the stream for some dumb reason. But a cool little hack here in terms of post EQ, something that a lot of people don't really know about if they've never worked in big studios and all that kind of stuff. I got to work in a lot of big studios in my earlier life. On SSL consoles and Neves and Studer tape machines and all that stuff. And let's turn this on. Bam. And bam, virtual mix rack. So unfortunately, we will not be able to actually listen to this, but this is a model, Slate Digital's model of a SSL, I believe a 4000 series console. Yeah. But I believe it's a 4000E series console. And the E series, it looks like an E. It's hard to say. It sounds like an E. I should read the release notes of this plugin. But if it's an E series module, an SSL E series module or something based on it, the upper mid boost of this is a magical thing. So if you want to do an upper mid boost for your guitars in a mix, say 2.364K, and you want to just boost it like 2 dB or 3 dB to get, you know, that brightness, like musical brightness and also attack, and maybe that bow wow wow, you know. It's funny, I can hear the bow wow wow, but you can't because it's on right now. But if you want more of that bow wow wow, the wah wah kind of thing, the SSL EQs are superior for that. And once you hear it, you're like, oh, I can't live without it. But yeah, in this section, I was supposed to talk about the cabs and the mics as well, but I seem to have already covered that. Yeah, my notes are behind the camera. This is a great place to put the notes. And the notes are over top of the chat because I only have so much screen. Great. One day we will win, guys. One day. I just need to make a couple more sweet grands. Whatchamacallit. So what else we got here? Mids, mix level. Okay. That's the next topic. So I think we're going to cover off on that topic. What was it? It was... the mid boost. Right. So I guess we can just summarize on that. The mid boost, the best way to get a mid boost on a regular amp setup that is going to be favorable for your low tuning to tighten. Oh my God, the liquid death. It's murdering my thirst. The best way you can tighten up a real amp, any amp, is, once you've gotten the most out of the amp itself. The amp is like, this is as best I can get out of the amp itself. Then you go to a boost pedal. Something based around a tube screamer design typically is the better choice. This is the Horizon Drive. And yeah, the nature of the EQ, the voicing of the pedal, as well as the boost into the power tubes, you get a high gain sound that is tighter and more articulate, and you get this nice crispy upper mids. I can hear my post EQ here in Reaper, and it sounds great, but you can't hear it. I'm gonna turn it off. There we go. Bam. Okay. So yeah, that's what's going on with overdrives. You can use almost any tube screamer idea type pedal. I have a here on loan from my pal Anthony Poto. He lent me the Fortin Grind, and it is very similar idea to the Horizon. Although it is a single knob thing, and the settings, multiple things change as the setting changes. So there's EQ curve, gain, and all kinds of stuff. There's more happening with that one knob than you would have control with something with more controls. But the Grind sounds great. And something else that is like the plumes, the Electro-Harmonics or Earthquaker devices. Both start with E. I have one here. It's plugged in. I can't get over there. But yeah, the plumes is a very clean sounding tube screamer type of boost. It doesn't have the kind of aggression that something like a Horizon Drive has, but it still does a similar kind of job in terms of it pre-filters the audio, gets rid of some of the bottom end, it accentuates the upper mids, and it plows into the preamp tubes in that tasty way. So that's what's going on in terms of just like, amp, cab, boost pedal after, your guitar. You got your strings sorted, you got your pickups sorted, or you don't, but you're aware of it. So, kind of like, it's a good idea to know where the shortcomings are. But I hope all that kind of makes some sense. We're going to grab a few comments here and get to the next topic in a moment. Bunn, you need a program called Loopback. Yeah, I tried Loopback, Todd, and it didn't work. It caused other things to crash. And I was like, ooh, I got to get rid of that ASAP. So I have a solution for it, Todd. I'm going to get into the Blackmagic Design ATEM, and just have all the sources going and just go right, like have a computer that is just pushing the audio in and all that kind of stuff. And the ATEM takes care of the direct to the stream, the out to the internet part. I will have to use another computer to monitor the chat and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's the way to do it for me anyway. Benjamin, thank you for the sticker, man. Got to move on, but great info. I'll have to watch tomorrow. Have a great weekend. You as well, man. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm just kind of plowing through here. Okay. What do we got going? Also have to include my single chains or both. Yeah, Turboplasma Chicken is talking about other drive pedals and distortions and whatnot. The Minotaur is a great thing. Is the Minotaur not based on the Klon? Turboplasma Chicken? Completely. If it's based on the Klon is a completely different idea than the Tube Screamer, but a very, very nice sounding sort of overdrive distortion type of thing. What else we got here? Turboplasma Chicken, Discord link. Damn it. What is the Discord link? Do I have it here? No, I don't. I was there too, specifically for that reason before the stream. Apologies. I can't open it right now because there's so much stuff open. Turboplasma Chicken, I will get at you with the Discord link. Damn it. Nick Hill, what do I do? I will get the Discord link will be in the description post show for sure. I promise. For sure. Okay, so you guys are having great conversations. I love it. I love it. Apoplexia mentions that the ISP Theta is also pretty good, but a lot more finicky. The Theta is a sort of solid state amp idea, is it not? I believe like a very, very involved amp system. I have played it, and I think I remember it being pretty good sounding. Yeah, bandless with the slash is bandless is the Discord. Is that all you have to do? Go on Discord, search for bandless, and you'll find it. Nick Hill. So Silver does MC. A BO Discord. There is a Baritone Obsessed Discord within the bandless Discord world. Like I say, I will have the link in my description of this video after the show. I meant to include it, and I clearly didn't copy it into my notes, but I was there specifically for that reason. Anyway, you guys are having good it doesn't show up still. Right. Turboplasma, I'll have the link post show. Apologies for that. Anyhow, we're going to get to the last part of this. And something I've been noticing a lot more lately because I've been listening to a lot more of, a variety of different things that a whole bunch of different people have been making. And unfortunately, I can't actually play the audio here. Like I can play it and I can hear it, but it won't play into the stream, regretfully. But I can still illustrate it. And what it is the levels of everything. So why is a mix really muddy? Both recorded and live. This is something to think about live as well. Is like, what is the relationship of the guitars and the bass to the drums? And typically what makes a good mix, a mix that is delightful, that a lot of people will be like, hey, that sounds really good. They might not know what they're listening to, but they're just like, hey, that sounds good. A lot of times what's happening is the drums are, ahead of the mix. The drums are up in the mix, and the bass and the guitars are mixed to the drums and usually coming in under the drums to some degree. So you know, my bass guitar, I mix it to the bass drum, and I always make sure that the bass drum can lead, like can be on top of the bass guitar ever so slightly, but and then I bring the guitars in to that mix and make sure that the guitars are never louder than the drums. So if you're playing live and you're like, oh, everything's muddy and swirling around, or you're mixing at home and you're like, I want to get a big sound and all this kind of stuff, there is a tendency to mix the guitars and the bass too high. And I'm telling you, mixing the drums up, you know, and the bass and the guitars down, and then kind of juicing the mix in the master, squeezing the mix in the mastering process, everything kind of really comes together there. But yeah, guitars and bass, actually, you know, always a little bit lower than the drums. The drums just leading everything. And that is such a major impact on the tightness of a mix. And in a lot of cases, it will make like really muddy guitars actually sound a lot tighter, you know, overall. So I actually have an example of that. Let's go, bam. Oh, here's the bandless, by the way. We'll get to that later. Where the Bunn.ca, bam, sludge tones. Oh yeah, if you want sludgy tones, Bunn has them. Or not videos, music. Here we go, bam. So this is a track that I recorded. This should play in the stream. This is a track I recorded, a project that I have called Wetlands. And this is an example of very muddy, you know, very sludgy, muddy guitars. And, but they're mixed down from the drums. The drums are mixed up. And overall, the mix sounds like pretty tight. And it's because things are mixed relative to one another and the drums are leading. So here we go. This is some muddy guitars. So I'm not going to play the whole thing. If you're interested, you can go to the Bunn.ca and listen to it at your heart's content. But let's go here, main camera. But that's a really good example of a mix where the drums are leading. Most mixes that you hear of bands that you like, the drums are up and the guitars and bass are actually pretty low to the drums. But there is a tendency when you're new to recording and mixing, or even a tendency when you're playing live, like guitar players and bass players like to turn up and bury the drums, and then everything sounds muddy and you're like, oh, I have my tone all sorted out, but everything's still muddy. Why is that going on? It has to do with this level relationship thing. Highly recommend like experimenting with that. You know, there's no rules, like you can do whatever you want, but if you're looking for that kind of thing, this tight punching sound, that is, wow, smashing the mic. That is a way to kind of tighten up a mix and tighten up the total presentation, is make sure that the drums are up front and the bass and the guitars are mixed to the drums, not the drums are trying to speak out over the guitars, unless that's the exact artistic thing you want to do. Artistically, if that's what you seek to achieve, then that is the right thing to do, to bury the drums and just have this like droning madness. There is music that is the most important thing in their artistic, their artistic goals. But if that's not your goal, you're like, why is it so muddy? Well, there's a good chance like the levels of everything are not even. And yeah, take a look at that. But I need to murder my thirst. Liquid Death. I'm not sponsored, but I seek sponsorship. Oh, I can see the comments here. We're going back to the comments. You guys dig that that Wetlands stuff? Yeah, Wetlands. That track is a monster. Bouquet. Like I wrote it, and usually people don't say that about their own things. I don't care. Like I don't really care about my music. I like it. I like making the music that I make, and I like what I end up with. Some of it I don't like, but I'm not like a sensitive person with my music. I don't. Some people are like, "This is how you're supposed to think of it," or whatever. I'm like, I don't care. It's like I like that track. It's great. If somebody hates it, great, perfect. But yeah, if you guys dig that track, it's on the Bunn.ca on my music page. It's also on my Bandcamp. And there's 3 proper Wetlands tracks there. The first one is not so good. This one's terrible. Oh, will it play? Here we go. This is the one. Nick Hill loves this riff. I think the riff is fun, but I just don't like the overall art direction of this. So yeah, that was the first one in the series, and yeah, Bouquet. Ah, it's so satisfying. it's so like, I don't know, it's so gnarly. But that's what I was shooting for the whole time, and then I finally got there after 3 tracks. But anyway, Cosman, you got to spin it until the earth below you starts separating. I'm going to take this guitar off. We're going to get into the chat here. What time is it? It is 10:15. Perfect. So we're going to get into the chat. The chat generally goes to about 10:30. If it's a really good hang, we go longer. Usually the stream doesn't go more than 2 hours, if anybody is wondering. But you're seeing my gorgeousness here. Whoa. And Cosman, check it out. You know what this is. Give you a big shout out there at the beginning of the episode. The Cosman made me these cables. And if you're just joining us now, the Cosman made me a set of cables. They have killer connectors on them. They are all short coily cables, and I wanted them specifically for working at the desk so that they were never all over the floor, but could stretch out long enough for working at the desk and not, not pull stuff off the desk. So they have been amazing. Most of my stuff is always plugged in, and all I have to do is just show up with a guitar and start working. I highly suggest that to anyone who's like having a hard time getting started with music or constantly putting it off. If you can set it up in such a way where you can just like sit down and go, there's no barriers, it is highly beneficial. And if you need cables from the Cosman, you can rock cables from the Cosman. Actually, I have to do this. Cosman has a YouTube channel. You could probably get a hold of him through there. He also has some very informative videos about electronics related things and amps. Like it's all music related stuff. But yeah, check out the Cosman. Yeah, these cables are killer. Thank you very much, Cosman. The cable color, there is development of a void. I would recommend having a chat with the Cosman. He's also in the Discord, but there is a limitation with the coily cables in how he builds them. And the emphasis of these cables really has to do with the connectors and like how they're soldered and the type of connectors used. and there's some things to know about what you have to give up to get the coily cable. But they're high quality cables. There's no shortcomings there. So yeah, get in touch with them. Darren Iceman, how are you? I hope you are well. The Reaper blog. Oh, John, how are you, man? Oh, dude, I had some Reaper up. I can't get Reaper sound out right now. I could get it out before, but I don't know. It's just not working today, but it was working before. Anyway, we had some Reaper examples going. If anybody is interested in learning everything possible about Reaper, the Reaper blog YouTube channel is the place to go. The content is great. The insight is unbelievable. But John's in the chat. Hit him up. Go at the Reaper blog. What's up? And he's an awesome dude. Chat him up. So David Hallwell says, that's how I have my setup. I have a Focusrite Scarlett Solo running into my computer, and there's always a cable plugged in. So all I have to do is just sit down and open Cubase. Yes, I highly recommend that to everyone if you're having difficulty getting going. Reduce any barrier possible. Anything you can do to be set up. I always have guitars out, so I can just grab the guitar, plug in, and go. Sometimes I might have to launch Reaper. A lot of times Reaper is already open. So, what am I sitting on? Turbo Esther asks what I'm sitting on. I am sitting on a chair. I'm not a gamer, so I don't have a gaming chair. It's just an office chair, orthopedic office chair. How orthopedic it is, I don't know. But there we go. You can see the back of it. I think it goes higher. Oh yeah, so high. So high I can kiss the sky. Maybe I'm a little too high up now. Whoa, there we go. Don't want to be too far from the mic. But yes. The Reaper blog, Tyler Adams is loving on the Reaper blog. Good. Yeah. It's like an incredible resource. I've been subscribed to the newsletter, this email thing, for quite a few years now. And I always look for the newsletter is great if you're new to the Reaper blog thing and you want to know all things Reaper. A great way to kind of keep up with it. Because there's so much content and just so much content in the world is if you subscribe to the newsletter, there's like a digest of everything in there every month. I believe it's every month. It might be every week. I think it's every month. But, and you're like, okay, I know right away. It's like, I'm interested in this. Make those a priority. It makes it easy because there's so much to know about Reaper. It's such like you can edit videos in Reaper full on, and John does. Reaper blog, John. You can do incredible amounts of things with Reaper. It's the most versatile platform, but navigating it is difficult. So having a resource like the Reaper blog is a very good thing. Self-inflatable, but does the chair go lower? Whoa. So low, dude. Yes, it goes lower. Just like all my guitars go lower. How are you, self-inflatable? Hope you're well. Rocking those London styles. Isn't your chimp to let it live? The chair goes to drop G. Chair goes to like octave down E, bro. Such a low chair. Todd Carpenter. Any thought on capacitors? Is there any values or types that are muddy or too dark or best for drop tuning? That is a great question. That may be something that we bring the Cosman onto an episode of the Bandless. Nick Hill and I, we do a show called Bandless every week on Wednesday, and we talk about all things involved in being a solo creator, which applies to being in bands as well. But solo creator who's doing music and all the hats that you wear and all that kind of stuff. So we could possibly bring the Cosman on in some capacity or have him do a spot for Bandless. I'm not too sure. You can reach out to Cosman and ask him about cap values and how they relate to, different implementations and pedals or preamps or whatnot in terms of better performance for low tuning and low tones. It's a great topic. It's a nerdy as F topic, but one that I'm interested in. I like nerdy stuff. So yeah, Cosman, I don't know. Capacitors where? There's many places we can put them, but I'm sure there's some info there. On undertone pots that say, okay, right. So that's actually an interesting topic right there, Todd. The capacitor on your tone knob. The capacitor is what bleeds off treble as you turn the tone down from 0. It bleeds off more and more treble using a capacitor, increasing the resistance, I believe, is what's going on. Cosman, you can, correct me here. But for low tuning, typically what I do is I make sure that the tone knob is out. I take it out because I want the least amount of treble bleed possible. I want all the treble, and I want to be able to cut off the super high treble, but any treble that might be available in the upper mids, I get rid of anything that is in the way. And a lot of times I'll use 1 megohm pots as well. Very high value pots that have the least amount of resistance, the least amount of treble bleed. So in that regard, maybe that's useful information. I hope so. Todd Adams, thank you, man. Oh, jeepers. Highly appreciated. You're a king, man. Cosman, I'm refreshing your memory. I don't even know that much about electronics. I know, I guess, enough for just a guitar player. I'm just a caveman guitar player, and I know the caveman ways of the electronics. So the impedance setting in my stomp, that's actually an interesting thing. Let's take a look at that. This is something that I always do. I did this on the Pod HDs as well, and I always found I got a better response, a response more favorable for the low tuning stuff for my kind of interest in tone. But if we go to the very beginning here, I'm going to switch over to, bam. So I'm looking at the Helix again here. I'm curious how this plays out in a real amp, meaning the input stage of any amp. If there's a way to change the resistance, I don't understand very clearly exactly what's happening on the immediate input stage of an amp and how this relates. But on the Helix, we have on the input, we can set the NZ. NZ is just the resistance on the input. And you can have very low resistance on the input and very high resistance on the input. Very high resistance, meaning low Z, and then very high Z. Is that the way it goes? So like 1 meg ohm, very high value, is very low resistance. And then the other way is very high resistance. And you get more treble bleed if I always have it set to 1 meg ohm on the input of the Helix. And I had the same thing on my HX, or not HX, my HD Pro rack thing, Pod HD Pro. And I'm not sure how it relates to actual amps. And if it's true, if this is a thing that is actually moddable in amps, I might actually get the amp modded and put in, you know, do this sort of thing with a real amp and have a brighter input. I'd rather have it brighter and be able to turn down the brightness later than not have enough brightness. Because when you try to add brightness, or add bass for that matter, when it just isn't there at all, it's a very bad sound. That's when you can start to hear the EQ and things start to sound plasticky. So yeah, very interesting thing to bring up there, Mr. Cosman. We can nerd out on on electronics more, but I got to read up more. Oh, Kian's here. Kian, how are you, man? I hope you are well. Kian's a ripper, dude. I love his playing. Kian, how's your baritone project coming? Did you ever get around to doing that conversion with your Strat? I'm curious. Mostly curious, like, to see how you like it, because you've been doing like low enough sounding stuff with standard guitars for so long. Always curious, you know, what the experience is when you first get into the baritone thing. And also if you do a conversion, how the experience with the conversion goes. Because sometimes it's a brilliant experience. Other times it's a very rough and rocky road. So yeah. Tyler Adams, Invaser straight to Jack. Invaser straight to Jack. Take no prisoners. Yeah. The best way to have like the most unobstructed signal, the least amount of resistance in your tone from the pickups to the amp, is to have no tone, no volume pots, no nothing, just straight to the jack. And then the shortest, straightest cable into your amp. And you'll have the most true to signal possible. I use coily cables, even like live, like I have 30-foot coily cables. In terms of treble bleed, the longer the cable is, the more treble will bleed off. It is a small amount. Maybe some cables, the value is more than others. It's something you can measure though. You know, you can get a multimeter or whatever. You can measure how much resistance there is and do some calculations and try and figure out what the actual effect on treble is. But yeah, for the cleanest, clearest path, pickups wired straight to jack, short, high quality cable straight into amp. And hopefully all the connections are really good. And you'll get the most true to life of the pickup and the strings. But I don't know. You got to give up on having a really cool 30-foot long coily cable. Kian, I ditched the conversion project. I'm too picky with the specs. I just got a confirmation email that my Sub-Zero Rogue baritone has been shipped, and I have a BKP Impulse waiting for it. Amazing. Okay, that's a good way to do it. Which one? The Rogue. Okay. You're going all the way. You're going all the way to 30. That's sick, dude. I'm stoked to hear what you make. So for those of you who don't know, Kian has a channel, and he makes a lot of really helpful content about, you know, getting tones and playing and putting things together in terms of music. The music is all mostly heavy focused, although he does diversify a little bit and ventures into the cleaner stuff occasionally. Great channel. Very like intuitive the way he goes about things, or very methodical the way he goes about things. I can only imagine that you are a scholarly fella going to university and you apply your learned processes from education to other things. Maybe not. Maybe you're just a natural born scientist. But yeah, very intuitive, very methodical content, and killer riffs. So that if all that ain't enough, the killer riffs should get you. It's not the resistance, but the capacitance of the cable. Bad or long cables have more capacitance, which turns them into low pass filters. Okay. Right. Thank you, Igor. Igor knows the electronics stuff. But yes, longer the cable run for a guitar cable, like a high Z cable, the longer the cable, the more capacitance, the more treble bleed. And which is, I think why a lot of sludge bands like long coily cables, because, it kind of bleeds off a little bit more treble, gets that guitar a little bit more, woolly sounding. Nick just came here and wanted to say you're awesome. Jimbo Collins, did I see your post on the new Loathe vid? Because I ordered the Rogue 6 with a friend, but it's not looking good. I think we're canceling our order. Yeah, they're mega back ordered, aren't they? And I think Jimbo is talking to Kian. Not exactly sure, but you're welcome. You do a great thing, man. It's very easy to share kind words. Eccentrics is saying I was going to get a Rogue or Sub-Zero Rogue 6, but the site said it isn't available in the US until September. The tax is crazy too. Yeah, it's an interesting scenario. The guitar is, the specs of the guitar are very appealing, especially for the price. The price is very low. The Rogue Sub-Zero 6. It is a 30-inch scale guitar with humbuckers. Ratho Quarter did an amazing demo on that guitar. If you haven't seen it, check out Ratho's video on it. He's one of my featured channels on my main page of my channel. If you don't know the guitar, but it is a 30-inch scale guitar, stock with humbuckers. The stock humbuckers, even though it is a cheap guitar, apparently sound decent, which is rare. And the demos that I've heard of it with those pickups, a lot of the demos sound pretty good. Every now and then a bunk one ships, such as the case with lower cost instruments that are manufactured very quickly in factories that might not be very high spec. It's hard to say what's going on there, but occasionally people get bunk ones. But generally speaking, it is a very low cost, $200 and some, very interesting spec baritone bass 6. And the most interesting part is there's such a huge demand for them because this interesting spec and that super low price that it is always sold out and people all around the world want it. So some people are paying more than the cost of the guitar to get it shipped to them, but it's still cheaper than buying an RGIB 21. And arguably the 30-inch scale is better than 28-inch scale. Even if you're not going very low, let's say you're going to B or A, if you can hang with the length on a 30-inch scale, the overall performance of the guitar, granted it sets up, you get one that isn't effed up. Some of them are effed up. But granted, you get a good one. the performance of the guitar is going to be way better at 30, even if you're tuning to A or B. But if you're doing G or lower, 30 inches in scale is like magical. So yeah, there's a real interest in that guitar, but it's always sold out. And if you live in the wrong place, the shipping and taxes and customs and all that stuff are going to be crazy. Have a good one, Cosman. Hope you are well. And yeah, looking forward to your next video. And hopefully we can get you on the band list. That would be great. If you're not comfortable with that, that's fine. But if you're at all interested in it, let me know. Let me and Nick know, and we'll try and figure something out. I have a drinking problem in that I can't keep the liquid in my mouth. $70 shipping to the US. That's not too bad for a guitar that's only $300. Turbo Esther asks or says, have you ever considered experimenting with alternate scales? Not scale length, but alternate musical scales, 16 tone equal temperament, EDO, as opposed to the traditional 12 tone, for example. I have not. There's a couple ways you could do that. You could do it with a, true temperament fretted instrument. You could do it with a slide. You could do it with a fretless guitar. There's a couple different ways to experiment with that stuff. For me personally, the only music I really know how to play is my own music. I'm not a very learned guitar player in the way that I can just pick up and shred. I don't know anybody else's music. I've never spent time learning how to play covers or anything else. So yeah, I don't kind of put my energy into that stuff. And because of that, I don't have a ton of skill. I only have the skill that I have for my own music. And some people will respond to that kind of stuff. Like when I share these ideas, they think I'm kidding, or they think, I don't know, I guess they just hear something in the music that I do make and they think that my ability should be different than it is. But that's what my ability is. I can play like some legato stuff, and I can play slow sweeps, and I don't know, I practice some of that kind of stuff. Like in terms of technique and expanded vocabulary of ability. But I do that stuff just to keep my fingers nimble and to be able to play anything at all. So I don't know much about the technical side of guitar playing. I do know about scales and modes, and I use them explicitly. All of my music is modally correct or scale specific. And so far, like to such a degree that I will not play notes that are out even in chords. So this is I just kind of got on this topic inspired by what you're asking, sharing. But the way I go about, so I will use the minor scale. So C minor, right? That's like beyond the octave, but anyhow, so C minor, that's where the fretting at 3 notes per string. If a person is going to play chords, like if they play bar chords, they'll often play a chord here in second position. They'll play a fifth. I will never play a fifth there because there is no fifth that occurs there. So if you look at the fingering, there's a flat 5 there, or there's a couple different chords in second position. But in first position, second position, you can play a minor third, a fourth, or a flat 5. At third position, you can play a major second, a major third, or as well a fourth. And I will grab any of those chords before I will grab a 5 because that note does not exist in the scale. So I am so specific about it. I will not place notes that are out. And, but that is the extent of my musical knowledge. You know, traditional church scales, the traditional major scale and all of its modes, no matter if you're playing minor or like any mode in that, all 7 modes, and then the symmetrical scales and the pentatonic and blues scales. And yeah, I adhere very strictly to it. And the reasoning, some people think I'm crazy, but the reasoning I do it is because nobody does. It is so rare for people to adhere to it that if you just adhere to only playing in notes, you instantly have more of your own sound because almost nobody does it. Most rare thing to find, which is really interesting. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know, have enough in me to go into like raga or, you know, other systems that are quarter tone systems or microtonal, because I don't have the mental capacity for it or the time. But it's interesting. So I'll cap off on that in a second, but I have some friends that are interested in that stuff. He plays a fretless guitar and he has music that is entirely devoted to that. And he plays in a band called Blastronaut. And let's see if we can find it, actually, because we got desktop audio. Oh, I was still on this. Is that what I wanted to talk about? I did want to talk about that. Damn it. Bandless. We'll come back to bandless. Bandcamp. Bam. Oh, I wonder if it'll go. I wonder if it'll wreck my streaming. Probably. Looks like it is. Oh, shoot. Blastro, N-A-U-G-H-T. No. N-A. I don't know how they spell it. Blastronaut? Maybe that. Hopefully. Anyhow, hopefully my stream is holding together here. Looks like it is. Hopefully it is. Blastronaut. There they are. Great. So these guys do tonal stuff like fretless guitar, and it's wild. I actually mastered this, I believe. Oh yeah, mastered by the Bunn. Look at this. Will it even play? It's still loading. Let's let it load. But yeah, these guys are a Toronto band, mathy, post-hardcore, guys who went to jazz school, enormous facility and ability. And yeah, it's still loading. Wow. That's wild. There we go. Ooh. Very loud. It's crazy. So it's not everybody's cup of tea. I think it's pretty awesome and gnarly. But yeah, they do the microtonal thing, fretless guitar, and it's wild as wild can be. So I don't know if that answers your question, but Bandless was open here. I should take a second to talk about this. Bandless was a live video podcast that Nick Hill and I were doing, and we were doing it on his channel. We tried to do it on both channels at the same time. And then we're like, let's just do it on its own channel. So we've moved it there. I love the show. It's super fun. We're going to get all of the episodes that previously were done up in the next couple days, probably tomorrow. And the Bandless podcast, video podcast will be happening here. I can share the link in the thing if you care to subscribe and follow along with that. We will also be adding the bandless Discord link into that and all that. It's all happening very quickly. But yeah, if anybody's interested in bandless and wondering what's happening with it, where it's happening here. And yeah, would love to have you. We hope to bring on lots of guests and cover way more of this stuff technically and philosophically. Up till now, we've been talking about a lot of philosophical stuff, but we want to get into more technical stuff as well. How to do things as a solo creator in the music game, you know? Bunn, I just got Starlink internet. My speeds went over 100 megabits per second higher. It's global beta. Oh, you got the Elon Musk thing. Yeah, it's supposed to be wicked fast. I don't know if I have the budget for it at the moment. I have new internet coming, I think this week, like a new service and a new modem. We're going to see how that goes. But yeah. But thank you for the tip, Aaron, Baritone Cult. For those of you who don't know Baritone Cult and you like baritone content, we can go there because we can do this. I think we did it last Baritone. It should autofill. Baritone Cult. There we go. Baritone Cult channel. Lots of things pertaining to the baritone topic. But yeah, what Aaron from Baritone Cult is sharing, this is his channel. And if you like baritone stuff, you should check that out if you can. The ping is super low too. Way back in the ways, fast internet. Yeah. One day I'll have fast internet. So Beard Guy says, I'm currently taking an audio engineering and production course to get certified. And while I'm learning so much, I always have to ask questions specific to mixing heavy stuff, not widely discussed. Yeah. It's interesting. Heavy metal, let's say heavy music. Heavy music is the most popular music in the world. Typically the Spotify charts, the most listened to music over and above all other music usually is heavy music. And what's interesting there is how popular it is and how few people are, you know, specializing in it and educating for it and all that. I think what happens with heavy metal is it's so passionate, or heavy music, is people are so passionate about it that they throw their entire lives at learning all about it in every way possible and don't necessarily learn or rely on traditional education channels to learn these things. And they just dive into it. You know, they are usually the people to buy a little bit of gear and dive right into it and dive into like what makes an amp work and what makes a good amp, and what makes a bad amp, and what all the mics sound like and why this compressor sounds better for this than this compressor sounds for that, et cetera, et cetera. They're the people to really dive into that stuff usually. So I've known. But yeah, they don't end up being teachers at audio colleges or, you know, having mentorships or whatever. They're usually really busy. Usually if you get into that game, there's nothing but work to be done. You know, there's tons of bands that need to be recorded. There's lots of albums to mix and master. So, because stuff in that world is coming out every day. I don't know how many of you guys buy music on Bandcamp, but I buy most of my music, if not all of my music these days, now that Google Play is gone. But I buy all of my stuff either off Bandcamp or directly from the artist, if that's an option, like from their website. But usually it's Bandcamp. And what's cool about Bandcamp is they have like a social component to it and all that kind of stuff. So you get the notifications of everything that's coming out based on everything you bought previously. If you allow the, you know, you can contact me if you have a new release type of thing. And I always do. And yeah, I get at least 5 to 10 emails every single day of some new release, and it's all heavy music. And a lot of it is high caliber, you know, it's played really well. It's crafted quite well. It's recorded really well. It's, you know, all that kind of stuff. For a long time, it was not as much that way. Earlier, when I was in the 90s, it cost an unbelievable amount of money to get the kinds of results that we get now. To get the kind of results that I get here in this office with a 2-channel interface, a really bad 2-channel interface. I need to murder my thirst here. Liquid Death, murder your thirst. Not sponsored. I need to get sponsored. Damn it. Gunky Zip, how are you? Hope all is well. What are you saying? I'll pass on that one. Nerding out. Oh, are you talking about Blasternaut? It's pretty crazy stuff. Eccentric says, I'm still in shock that the guitar industry and musicians are so behind when it comes to baritones. People that only use 4 to 6 string are still buying. I'm not exactly sure what that gets to there, but anyhow, are still buying 7 strings and for tuning down, and it's bizarre. Yeah. I don't know. It's a special thing. We're in a special little zone. It's interesting, you know, it comes up a lot in a lot of the streams where people will talk about their experiences at guitar stores or with techs, like people who work on guitars, luthiers, or just guitar techs. And I'm talking about general guitar techs, like you go to a service to get your guitar set up or the neck straightened or frets leveled or whatever. You know, you need a service. You go try and find someone who can do it and pay them to do it. It seems like the people who are really, really, really good in that world, they have a private business and are usually working for really big time artists. And, you know, those are the people who typically seem to know the difference more and can give you better information, better insight into the world of baritones and things like this. The more general services are just usually people who just play general riffs, play AC/DC riffs, and, you know, maybe they have a cover band. Maybe they've never had a band ever. There's a lot of those too. Not to say that there's anything wrong with that, but usually the people who are really, really, really good at it have a pretty wide experience and are usually hard to hire because they're either too busy or have very high-end clients, you know, and they fly around the world to work on this celebrity's guitars and this celebrity's guitars. So interesting thing. Yeah, people are not really in the loop. And all the people who are capable of spreading the information are not accessible. Seemingly. But yeah, you walk into a store and people are like, what's going on? They look at you like you're an alien or the guitar is an alien or something like that. I'm like, it's just a guitar. There's nothing special about a baritone. It's just like a little bit longer to tune down a little bit more. That's the whole story. People understand bass. People understand why a bass is longer than a guitar and why things proportionately grow. So the scale length proportionately grows along with the string gauge to perform really well an octave below. And, you know, if you apply the exact same idea to a guitar, but just not as long, it just all makes sense. There's nothing to think about. That's the weird thing. But I've brought my guitars to techs. This is how I ended up just doing it all myself, is I brought my guitar to techs and they're like, you know, I don't really get this baritone thing. I brought my guitar to one tech and they're like, what do you want to tune it to? And I'm like, G standard. And they're like, what is that? I'm like, it's like E standard, but just in the key of G. And they're like, what are the notes? I'm like, what? And I had to write it down for them. I'm like, what? Yeah. You know, some people would be like, well, you left your guitar with that person. This person was really good at one thing. And that one thing that I needed them to do, they did a pretty good job at. But yeah, that's how weird it is, man. To like G standard. I'm like, a guitar is tuned in fourths. Standard tuning is not specific to E. Standard tuning just means tuned in fourths, and the second and the third are tuned a third apart. Everything else is tuned in fourths. That's standard tuning. Not a mystery, especially if you work on guitars. So why is everyone so far behind? I don't know. I feel like it doesn't take any capacity. It doesn't take any neural energy to understand what's going on with baritones. But for some reason, a lot of people get really tripped up on it. And I don't know. There's not much to know. It's a guitar. It's tuned lower. It's a little bit longer. Strings are a little bit heavier. That's it. Same. What's going on? I remember back when it was just Ibanez that made sevens. Nowadays, the list of people who don't make a seven is super small. Yes, Jimbo brings up a good point there. Sevens, there was like a major boom with sevens, and it kind of, you know, the sevens came out of Steve Vai's Gem universe. I don't know which one was first. I think the Gem was first. Doesn't really matter. Steve Vai introduced the world to a factory-made 7-string and popularized the initial idea. And then Korn, you know, it only grew so much from the Steve Vai thing. And then Korn came along, and Korn did two things. They used it explicitly to tune lower. Steve Vai used 7 strings a lot of times to tune higher. With an extra high string, not an extra low string. So Korn comes along and they're like, these 7 strings, we could put an extra low string on it. And it was just like, you know, them just being goofy kids, not really knowing stuff. They're like, oh, that sounds like a good idea. So they did it. And, you know, it's 25.5 inches in scale. It can do like a B it can do A okay, but 25.5 can do B totally good. You know, the string gauge has to be a little bit too heavy, but it works. And millions of people have done it with great success. But anyway, Korn comes along with the 7 strings. They tune it down to A, and it gets a lot of press, like an unbelievable amount of press. And the guitars and the tuning and their sound was very press-worthy. And I have a feeling that maybe Meshuggah kind of realized that there was like something to that story. Meshuggah was naturally interested in pushing music more extreme, and they wanted to go lower. But Meshuggah did it right. Yes, they added more strings. But the other part of the story with Meshuggah, they went to 8 strings, and that was story-worthy because 8 strings is a better news story than extra long scale guitar. An extra long scale guitar in terms of a news article doesn't really land on people. It's not exciting to talk about. It doesn't sound right. You can't see it really. A lot of people can't even see the difference between a guitar and a bass. But if you give them something to count, it's an easier story to tell and more exciting. So the more strings thing, I think, is really popular because it's an easier story to tell. It takes no thinking, and it just seems to make sense, even though it doesn't actually make sense in terms of the physics of it. You add more strings, it doesn't give you any advantage for tuning lower or higher for that matter. So yeah, if you look at a harp or a piano, you know, it's fanned. It's like the really, really low notes have bigger, slightly bigger strings and are much, much longer in scale. So there's not much to think about, but for some reason, people have an easier time with more strings. I don't know. Very interesting. But anyhow, where are we at here? It's getting pretty late. I'm going to make this big so I can see everything. Bam, 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 bam. 30-inch scale berries. Cool. Yeah, like Jimbo got into seven strings because of Korn. Like Korn was a gateway for a lot of people to explore a whole new thinking in terms of music. It just, you know, it just so happens that 7 strings weren't the best idea to achieve that, like technically speaking, but it's art, and they changed the paradigm of creativity forever. Even though like a lot of people will, you know, crap on Korn because there's some cheesy stuff going on there and whatever, but you know, in terms of their music, artistically, they actually, their first record, just the Korn self-titled, that was a pretty artistic record. So yeah. Whatchamacallit, there's a lot going on here. Yeah, that doesn't spending a night sober. Gunky Zip. I think that Blastonaut track sent Gunky Zip into an alternate dimension. Secret Overdrive. Do you solid? Okay, you guys are having conversations with each other. So, gang, I'm going to shut her down here. I would like to thank Nick Hill. Thank you for the super chat. Is that what they're called? Super stickers? I'm going back to see Tyler Adams just to make sure I thank everyone because, oh, I can only go that far back? Okay. Well, thank you all again another time. But I'm going to shut her down. Another great evening. Lots of interesting stuff we got into here. Turbo Esther. Yeah, Meshuggah is amazing. But you know, they wanted to keep all the high stuff too and be able to not have to change guitars. But yeah, I'm going to shut it down. I think that this was an amazing, you know, amazing chat. You guys always bring up great stuff. Great to see a lot of familiar faces. Great to see some new faces. I hope you're well. Have a great weekend. And yeah, try and keep in touch with your brethren if you can. A good way to do that is in the Bandless Discord, which has a Baritone Obsessed section, a Nick Hill section, a Bunn section. It has a bunch of sections, even Gear Stuff and Things section. Stephen Barton has a section there as well. But come hang out at the Discord. You can probably catch up with a lot of these folks there. And keep the conversation going. I will put the link to the Discord in the description of this video at the end. And hopefully, oh, the liquid death is making me burp. Hopefully it'll be easy to find. But have a great weekend, and we'll see you in the next one. The next Bandless live stream is on Wednesday on its own channel. Check that out. And yeah. Awesome. Nick Hill's stream is tomorrow night. So hopefully I'll see a bunch of you guys there. Have a great weekend and be rad.